G'day, this is Eric Perez from Talking Leadership, welcoming you back to our ongoing series of leadership discussions. And today's guest has kindly given up some of his time to speak with us. I'll provide you with a background to today's guest. He is currently the CEO of the Water Authority of Fiji. And can I welcome to the podcast Mr. Barry Omundson. How are you, Barry?
Fantastic, Eric. And yourself?
Not too bad, mate. Look, appreciate your time. So look, you're one of many that's given up their time to talk about your leadership journey. So I do appreciate your time this morning. So let me start off where I've started every podcast by asking, in which industry was your first leadership role and why did you take that on, Barry?
Eric, it really wasn't an industry as such. I mean, I found myself leading people as a part of sporting teams during high school. And that came about because I was one of the better players or athletes on the team. So I suppose I had some skills and that naturally attributed to me taking on a leadership role of the soccer team, the football team, and also the athletics teams. That's initially where I started.
Oh, nice. Okay. And was that a helpful stepping stone into the world of work when you were looking at leadership roles, or did that not cross your mind from the world of sport into the world of work?
It's a direct correlation because the world of work is full of people and sport's full of people. It's the same thing, and they're all individuals. So I found out that you just need to treat people how they like to be treated on a sporting field to get the best for the whole team environment, and work is very much the same.
Oh, excellent. And you're one of few that's brought up that connection between the world of sport and work. So, look, Barry, in your experience, have you found a difference between the leadership function and management function?
Yeah, I have. I have my own view on that. And my view is that leaders get things done, and a leader will stick their head up in the organisation, look ahead 2 to 3 years, put some key deliverables in between to achieve those things that are coming into the external environment, and get it done. And a manager will, I define a manager from difference between a leader as a manager will manage the day-to-day stuff. So he or she will focus on the day-to-day. Now, my experience is that an organisation needs both leaders and managers, and it's depending on your cultural cycle of the organisation, how if it needs to be more leaders or more managers.
Does necessarily being a manager mean you don't have those potential leadership qualities that you're talking about? Are they very distinct areas, or can there be a degree of crossover?
No, my experience, Eric, is certainly there will be a degree of crossover. There are some people in an organisation that are in the management role doing the day-to-day because of the culture of that organisation at the time, where they should put their head up to have round or ask what, they end up getting shot. So they're protecting their own jobs, and so it doesn't mean they're not necessarily got the leadership capability to go forward.
Okay, no, that's interesting. So, from the next perspective, leaders make mistakes, Barry. So how do you engage with an error or mistake that's attributed to your leadership?
The first thing is to own it immediately. And certainly don't look to anyone else. And when leadership can be a lonely, but yet I found rewarding function. So if you've made a mistake, you need to put your hand up and say that's mine. And sometimes when things go wrong, it may not necessarily be about one's leadership, but you may be a part of a team at work or anywhere else. And as a leader, you actually then own that mistake, even though arguably it may not have been your direct mistake. But that just shows a little bit of humility. And also, I think one should look at each day at work and think, okay, well, how did that go? And then ask yourself, could I have done better in different areas and different conversations, which is what I tend to do.
Ah, that's great. And I've heard that put sort of as a introspective part of being a leader in an organisation. Can I just ask a follow-up question with something that you brought up? You said leadership can be a lonely place, and that's come up quite a bit. Can I ask you in what senses do you mean lonely, and to deal with that degree of being isolated, if that's what you mean? Do you reach out to similar level leaders? How do you cope with that?
You cope by you do have a network of people that are generally outside the organisation. As a leader, for example, as a CEO, an organisation evolves, and the CEO has a big impact and puts an input. in the organisation. It can mould itself to reflect what the CEO is, and therefore you get people saying what you want to hear, not necessarily what you should be hearing. And you need to be very cognizant of that. So what I've done in the past is had external people that are far smarter than me and put them together in a room, and they catch up with me on a regular basis, and we talk about things and discuss things that they'll tell me things I need to hear. That's a part of that. You can't ask, for example, the board who I report to, and the board expect you to get things done, and then there's an executive team and a wider management team. You're not really a part of that as well at the same time because you're delivering through the board. So you do need an external network, and you should actually, if one hasn't got one of those networks, if it's just 2 or 3 different people, it's good to have that because it keeps some sanity to yourself, so you don't get too frustrated as a leader, because there will be days when it will be frustrating, and you really can't ask those that you report to, and you really can't show that side to those that you lead.
Yeah, that's great, and I can see that, and it's interesting that you mentioned that you've got other people who are prepared to be truth talkers or truth tellers to what it is that you do, because that gives you an ability to cement what it is that you're doing and work out how to do things a little differently, not necessarily better, but differently to what you've done in the past. That's quite an interesting response. So can I now ask you, what do you find, Barry, has been the most difficult part of being a leader?
Dealing with disappointment. So for me, leadership is about developing others. When people say to me at barbecues or wherever we catch up, what do you do? And I say, whatever organisation I'm in at a leadership role, I say I develop people to make them better people, to make them better persons. And it may sound a bit corny, but for me, it's not. I think leadership is about development of others. So when you build a tight team, be that an executive team or a management team or even an organisational wide, I used to be naive enough when I first started my leadership gigs years ago to think that out of 10 people I could assist and transform 10 people and make an effective organisation. My experience after a number of years now, Eric, is that number's down to 8. So 8 out of 10 people I think can come onto the leadership journey or the cultural journey to form a better organisation and develop themselves to be better people at work and at home. The 9th person is one that you're always constantly working on, and it's the bane of all leadership. And the 10th person cancels themselves out and they exit the organisation. And that person that may exit the organisation, or the one that continually frustrates you, the 9th person, you may have spent a lot of time, energy, and form personal relationships with those people. And when you're let down, it's the disappointment of those very small minority as a leader, where you see the others developing.
Yeah, okay, and that is thank you for that perspective, because that's come up quite a bit, and you're not the first to say, at least in these in this podcast series, that that's an important part of what it is that you do, and it's good to hear actually, because when people look at leaders, sometimes you see the cutthroat. We just need to achieve targets, and there's no outward appearance that they give us stuff one way or another about the people that are working with them, but it is good to hear, quite gratifying to hear that there are people out there that have that in mind, and that's a good way to develop organisations as well. If it's merely about just hitting targets and you miss the other things about being in the world of work and the culture and where you work is quite important. And this is not a nice segue to the next question. How do you measure success as a leader?
What I was just talking about before, it is seeing the development of others. You all obviously have to have the tangible things such as KPIs. You need to achieve things. And I say leaders get things done. So it's all about action. So you need to achieve things. For me, it's pretty simple. You can't achieve things in a large organisation of 2,500 people. At the moment, I've got, for example, by yourself. So you need to get things done through people. So you need to develop your people to trust them to get those things done for you as a CEO reporting to a board. So I measure success by, achieving what the board requires of me, but very cognizant that I've achieved that through the development of those people I have.
Excellent. So look, I've got a couple of statements here that I'd like to get your view on if I can. The first one being, on-the-job experience develops better leaders.
Certainly. You need to be in the field to make mistakes and to develop the self before you can be a true leader and develop others.
Okay, and so the very much linked question to that is, formal education helps to develop better leaders?
Educating oneself will, I have found, assist in developing leadership skills and knowledge. However, I have worked with many poor leaders with formal education.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. I think we all have, and it's funny that, and I don't ask that question to be facetious. I think that for me, that question is about just exposing what you've been exposed to. Because I know in my travels, I've met people with massive amounts of credentials that are excellent leaders, and I've met their complete opposite in the world of work as well. And you think, wow, if you're that smart, how can you not see the common sense here, or how can you not see the issue for all of those book smarts that you've got? So I think it may come down to person-specific traits in the workplace. But look, I don't have enough evidence for that other than to say, you find very different people with very different skill sets that don't necessarily make great leaders, and nor does being formally educated guarantee that you're going to be a great leader. Again, and thank you for the setup, because it comes to the next statement I've got. I'll be very interested to what you have to say to this. Leaders are born, not made.
Leadership is a journey for me, and it's also about the self-development, and it never stops. So leaders are defined to some extent, I think, by their own personal development experience while growing up. But what occurs to you as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, and how you respond to that develops your leadership profile. So it's like emotional intelligence. It develops as you get older. So I think leaders are more rather to be moulded by their journey in life than being born a leader.
Nice. That's a great response. And it's a little different to what I'm getting, which is people sitting on the fence. And unfortunately, I'm still a fence sitter on that one, but that's a great response. So the next couple of questions are around some work that I'm doing in my tertiary studies at the moment, looking at leadership development, and I'm looking at two particular leader capabilities, so strategic thinking and foresight, as being critical, the most critical leadership capabilities, at least for fit for future leaders in the agricultural sector. Now, I'm not asking you to draw on any experience in the ag sector, other than to ask, from your perspective, how important or not important, or do you believe strategic thinking and foresight are in a leader?
I think they're critical. I think you're right on the money there. I don't know about the agricultural area. However, having strategic thinking and the foresight is what I said earlier on about leaders sticking their head up and envisioning the future 2 to 3 years out, putting plans in place to realise that. Yeah. However, I support that, and I think you're on the right track there. But for me, it's about culture as well too. Culture plus strategy, to me, equals leadership. So culture and strategy go hand in hand. Both have the one key element, and that's people. And we tend to forget that. Great successful organisational cultures are set by those people within the organisation and exemplified by its leaders. So leaders get things done through their people. I've said that a few times. My view and experience, Eric, is that culture comes first, and then the nature of that culture actually defines the success of the strategy. So culture and strategy are brought together by leaders. So leadership is one of the most critical undertakings of any of us can ever do. So, because what you say, what you do or don't do does affect those people that you lead. And delivering strategy takes leadership. So leading people, our people who want to follow us. So without the right culture, many will question leadership and less will walk the path to strategy results. Now, that's something I put on LinkedIn, very similar to that, a year or so ago, defining what is leadership. And everyone has their own view on it, of course, but I think leadership and strategy, culture and strategy equals leadership.
That's excellent. And that's I'd never thought of it that way. And yeah, culture and strategy are definitely about the people that you're there, because you could come up with as many strategies as you want, but if the people aren't following you, your people aren't following you to make it happen, it's pretty much a useless exercise.
Sure.
Barry, just as a final question here, what might you say to a younger version of yourself about being an effective leader? What
I'd say is a few things. Treat people how they want to be treated, not how you think they should be treated. Have patience, be persistent, and be personable. Leaders get things done. So things are done through people, not systems or processes. So work on relationships, and get things done.
Barry, thank you for your time and thank you for leaving us on that positive note. For those listening, this has been Eric Perez from Talking Leadership, speaking this morning with Barry Omundson. Thank you, Barry. And look, I appreciate your time and thanks for coming on the podcast, mate.
No, pleasure, Eric. Well, good luck in the future.
Cheers, mate.